I just thought I'd give you a little update on some of the videos that I'm going to show over the next little while, as well as answer a few questions that I tend to get fairly frequently from people asking me about the West Coast Trail. The next video that I'm going to do, we'll deal with that one first, is actually going to be a hike I took earlier this year to the Seton and Yellow Quill Trails, locally in Spruce Woods Provincial Park. I took them with my border collie Sophie, and it was her first hike out, and we got some footage of it, and as you'll see in the video, it was kind of fun. So that's the next video I'll put together. Hopefully I'll get that one out maybe in about the next week or two. After that though, I'm not exactly certain which video I want to edit. I've got quite a few of them in the tank that I can put together, so I'm going to give you guys the actual choice. Whether you want to see Chris and I go out to Mary Jane Lake in Nopalming Provincial Park, that took place in the winter, or whether you want to see a hike I took with Rob and Dawn. We went out to Riding Mountain Provincial Park and we did Whitewater Lake, as well as a hike through the Grasshopper Valley, and I think the Minnedosa Creek might have been the next campsite that we stayed at. That was in the fall of I think it was fall 2015. Anyways, so you can choose a winter video, and if I can do this, maybe I'll put it up here if I can't, and or you can choose the fall video, which we'll put up over here. So that's going to be winter or fall. If the videos don't appear there, then I wasn't talented enough to figure it out yet on YouTube. But getting to the West Coast Trail, some of the questions that I've had from some people locally here, the overwhelming question I have is fuel. How much fuel to take on the hike? Now most people use those pocket rocket stoves, those which is what we did. We used the two fellows, or the fella and I that shared our meal plan together. We used two 8-ounce canisters over the whole time. I don't think we went into one of the spares that we brought along as a group. Now, because there were 10 of us traveling as a group on the trail, we brought along 3 spare canisters in case anyone would need it. We brought 2 8-ounce spares and 1 4-ounce spare. Now, there were a couple of people that brought 1 8-ounce and 1 4-ounce canister, and a few people that used 2 4-ounce canisters for their trip. I think a lot of it's going to depend on the type of meals you prepare. Andre and I were preparing meals that required a little bit of cooking, a little bit more preparation. I tend to be a little bit cook heavy in the backcountry as opposed to just dump water in and eat from a bag. So we used the 2 8-ounce canisters for our trip. Now we were on trail for 7 days, so 6 nights. So that was about the trail, what we used. Now, a couple other things, some hints that I had from my time on the trail to pass along to you, that you might find interesting, are food bags. Everyone has a blue or a red stuff sack, and they put their food in it. If you add something, either your name to the stuff sack, colored ribbon to it, maybe you make your own stuff sacks. If you do something different to your food in the bear box, it's going to make it a lot easier to pick it out. There were times where some people reached, the bear box at Susiet Falls was packed, and we had a hard time getting our food in there, and it's just going to get crammed in a really heavy used bear box. So if you have your food in something, or you have something on your food bag to differentiate it, or your name on the outside so somebody doesn't accidentally pick up your food bag. We didn't have that happen, but it could happen. If you have a spot, or you carry along a spot beacon, the message that you want to put in when you go on to Spot on the website, you can set up your contacts. I have the one that allows me to send the I'm okay, a custom message, request for help, or of course the SOS one. With the SOS one, I put on the contacts there, because that's what goes to the global the Spot group there that is going to come rescue you. What I put in there was the Parks Canada 24-hour emergency number, as well as a message for them to contact Parks Canada, as well as our permit number. I put all that information in there, and you can find that on the Parks Canada website. I'll try to put the link down below in the comments if I find it. Hopefully, you know what, that might help you if you carry a Spot, if you need it. Now, we never did need it. I did press the I'm okay, having a great time. When it does come to cellular, one of our fellas did have a cellular phone, and he bought one of those cheap pay-as-you-go SIM cards, and he stuck it in. It was an old phone. It's like one of the old flip phones. and it actually connected to the Verizon tower in Washington State. It was a CDMA phone, and it worked. So I did call home once to say, hey, everything's fine, having a wonderful time. But if you want to communicate, having not a smartphone hooked up to Verizon will enable you. Now, of course, if you're in Washington, if you come from the States to hike the trail and you have a Verizon phone, it might help you connect. Speaking of other travel, some of the things that you might want to be aware of is in case of emergency, make sure you carry your travel health insurance. You always should do that. Now, most evacuations, if you're brought off by boat, you'll be taken to Port Renfrew in the south. That was my understanding from the staff. They will transfer you to BC ambulance at that point, and then if you're part of a group, I think if they have room, they'll allow one person to go with you. But if not, one of your group might be evacuated, and the rest of you might be still having to continue the trail and make your way back to Victoria. And the person going to Victoria might, if you get discharged from the hospital fairly quickly, which in Canada we like to do, you may find yourself having to either make your own way back home or staying over in Victoria on your own. At least that was some of the things that we advised our participants on the trip. You want to take some cash. I told everyone on our trip, take $100. That's going to cover you to eat at Monique's, meal at Susiet Falls, some souvenirs along the way if they're selling them, as well as on the ride back, on the bus ride back from Bamfield, or maybe that's your route up there. But on the bus ride back, he stops for a brief little bit, I believe in Bamfield, at a Quickie Mart type store, as well as he stops at a gas station along the way. You're not going to have a lot of time to get a meal or anything like that on that last day. There is a campground store in Pachena Bay, but when we went through, the campground store was actually closed at the time we were there. That's just, there was some event going on, I believe, there. So make sure to bring some cash along. It's going to make a lot of people were trying to do debit at the terminal, but if you've got 35 people or 30 people lined up trying to rush through a store doing debit, it takes a little bit of time, even with the tap. Batteries for cameras. I had a solar charger with me. You don't need a solar charger on it. I did have to recharge my batteries, and a lot of people were charging their phones. I found that about the third or fourth day, people were needing to charge their phones. They were taking pictures with their iPhones or their Androids. So yeah, they about then. So if you had one of those little those portable power bricks that would give you a couple of charges for your phone, you'll probably be fine with that. If you're carrying a lot of video equipment, you might want a little bit more. Breakfast on departure. When you're leaving Victoria, the bus leaves first thing in the morning. Our hotel breakfast didn't open till 7 o'clock. So we picked up some fruit and some pastries in Victoria, so that we had them before we ate them in the hotel before we boarded the bus. There's no real stops en route. There is a little stop, and I bought a cookie there. You might have seen me munching on it in a couple of videos, but I bought a big cookie at a little store just before Port Renfrew. There's limited food options after the trail, and there's also limited washrooms too. So try to keep those two things in mind as you're doing it. And the last one is the resource materials. A lot of people ask me, what did I use for resource? Like, did I need blisters and bliss? Most people, when they're planning it, that's exactly what they've come up with. They're using this book, Blisters and Bliss. It's entertaining, and he's got some good information in it. Now, Parks Canada is going to give you this book, your West Coast Trail map. In it, they have taped to the back pamphlet, or the side pamphlet. Where is it here? They taped the tide tables to it. I don't know if you can see it right in here. Here's your tide tables. So they do tape the tide tables to it. So everyone who starts a trail, you're going to get one of these. This is really all you need on the trail. You don't need any other map. The books are nice to have if you want to learn about a little of the history. Because we were planning to intentionally leave the park and go, which is not allowed, and go off at Carmanah to find the Carmanah Giant, I did buy this map of the West Coast Trail and Carmanah Valley, because it actually notes on the map where the Carmanah Giant is. And now that's not recommended. You're not supposed to leave the trail, but it does exist. That was something we did, and we never did actually take that option. So I don't think I'll probably ever make it out there again. But if I do, I've got the map for it. One of the first books that I ever read on the trail, and a visually magnificent book, was the Globe and Mail's review of it. This was the very first book I ever read on it, Hiking on the Edge. And it also gives you the Juan de Fuca trail on there too, if you want to do that. It's got just a simple little map, but it is full of absolutely stunning photography in here. Really good book. I really like that, and it's just for the history. It was a nice book. That was one of the first ones I ever read on the trail. This book, I love this book. It's by Tim Ledham, and it is Hiking the West Coast Trail, a pocket guide. It's thin, it's light, it's not very heavy. This book we would read around the fire at night. It's really half as thick. Like if you're really into counting your weight and you're going to really watch your grams, you can split the book in half. This half is south to north. This half at the north, the other way, north to south. So you really only need one half because it actually is identical the same way. I like that book. We sat around and we would read it almost like story time at night around the fire before we would start hiking. And by far, out of all of them, I got most of my information out of this book. And that's the one I used to plan most of my journey. I'd already planned most of the trip by the time I actually picked up Blisters and Bliss, which it's a good read. It's fun. But Tim Ledham, that's the book I like, and if I have to recommend, that's the one I would tell people to pick up. But so please let me know down below whether you would like me to do. Let me see if I can remember that. The winter trip or the fall trip to Riding Mountain. Let me know what you want, and I'll do that one first. Probably we'll keep it open until I get around to editing it, and that should work. A little bit different. See if anyone posts something there. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the series. Hope you got something out of it, and maybe some of these tips will help you out as well. Take care, and it's always good to get out.